Welcome, everybody. Best damn pod in the land, Chad Stryker, Dan Divjak. Our names are spelled correctly. Thank you, AI, on our screen. And we're back with another episode, our Tuesday episode. So if you could subscribe, we are at 381. 381, Dan. I checked right before we got on the show. We're trying to do a blitz to 500. If we hit 500 before August 31st, the Akron game, we'll put you in a raffle for a $50 Buckeye Corner gift card. Get yourself some Buckeye gear. And you help me win a bet with my wife so that I can go to an extra football game this year. So help me win. I want to win, because if not, then I'm on the hook for like a super swanky dinner I don't want to pay for. I'd much rather go to a football game. I don't know about you guys, but Dan,
Chad actually promises that if he gets to go to that extra game, just for our listeners, he's going to streak down the middle of the field.
Hey, I only did that twice, and it was in college. No, that never happened. But so thanks for joining us, guys. We are closing in on the final week of fall camp. It wraps up this week, which means we are very, very close to kicking off our best damn recap show. So you guys asked for more content. You're going to get more content. We're going to do live shows after Ohio State games this fall on Saturdays. So 10 or 15 minutes, they'll be live. You can get on, you can ask us questions. We'll give you our take on things. I will be at a few of the games, so Dan and I will be working out how we're going to swing that. But regardless, we'll be going live. We'll be having some fun. Maybe I'll just go up to the press box, Dan. Who knows? Who knows what I'll do? Get a little crazy. So I want to give a shout out to Dan, and I want to, like, you and I feel like we're pretty good at this, but we like pod mashups. And tomorrow we're going to be joining Ron and Q. I'm excited. We'll be on at 8 a.m. for the I guess it's 8 a.m. 7 for you.
Yeah, 8 a.m. Central. It's the Buckeye Roast on the Best Damn Media channel with Ron James and Q. They do a great job, man. They're going at it. They're on time every morning, 7 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Eastern. And it's a live chat. They interact with the listeners. All the usual suspects are usually in the chat.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it, man. They're good guys. They do a really good job.
Yeah. Jim DeChequa was on there this morning. I listened to quite a bit of it. It was a good show. They did a great job. So appreciate those guys having us on. It's guest week for them. So don't forget to catch the Buckeye Roast tomorrow morning. Dan's got his usual hot takes. So we'll have a good time. The last thing I wanted to say really was mostly about Cody Simon. Congratulations to Cody Simon, Blocko recipient. Dan, you had it first.
I don't know if I had it first. Did I?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the credit.
I think that was my guess.
Yeah. I think I'll
tell you who had it first. And he let the people know yesterday in the lead into his show was Juck.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the entire beat seemed surprised and caught off guard that not only that he was a captain, but that he got the block O. And, Juck had that visit a few weeks back to the Woody, and he came away and said, Cody Simon's going to be a captain.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So well, kudos to the non-insider.
Yeah. Well, I think it was, what was it? Thursday or Friday last week, I joined a couple of shows, and they were talking about, and they were live shows, and they kept saying that it was going to be Jack Sawyer. I'm like, guys, it's going to be Cody Simon. Cody Simon will be the block O. And they basically paid me no credence. They didn't care.
Those are the two we were between, right?
Yeah.
It was Jack and Cody. The perception
there was some talk about a Mecca.
Yeah, there's the perception out there is that Jack's the one that kind of rounded up the cattle and got everybody to come back. Ironically, Cody Simon just very quietly made the decision to come back before any of them.
Yep.
I don't think he was somebody that was looked at as would leave. Like I don't even think he probably had a draft grade as far as 1 through 7. But I think that's probably why it was a little bit quieter than the Jack thing. But I mean, the kid's earned it, man. He's been there. He's persevered. He's fought through a bunch of injuries.
Yeah,
I think people are going to be shocked at how good he is this year.
I think so too. I thought he was fine, in the Kerry Coombs defense, and he was playing at will. So, it is what it is. But congratulations to Cody.
That's it's a bold comment there, Cotton.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody was good in the Kerry Combs defense.
I didn't say good. I said I thought he was fine. But okay. Yeah, I sent you guys the text after the loss to Oregon in 2021 about the players. It was that people were up in arms that because we couldn't stop the run, the pitch for whatever reason. But yeah, moving on from that. So everybody likes recruiting news, Dan, and so you were live with Chuck for several hours on Saturday. The David Sanders commitment doesn't go our way. There's a lot of noise around it, I guess, in Buckeye Nation, some frustration. And I just wanted to ask you, and this is me in my Dave Ramsey-ness, I guess. I'll throw that out there. Just if you threw $2 million at David Sanders and then he tears his ACL this fall, and this guy, and he can't, he's got another full season of football, something happens to him, and you could have used that money on 2 or 3 other players to help your program or retain somebody next year. What does that look like? Is there, I feel like there needs to be checks and balances in my mind. And I get it. I love David Sanders' game, probably a day one starter. There isn't another David Sanders in this class. I respect all of those things, but the illusion that we could have just thrown another $1 million at him, I can't get behind that, and I'm struggling with that. So, Dan, talk me off a ledge here. Am I crazy?
I mean, yes, certifiably questionable.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. My understanding is that we had the best NIL package.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his father said as much, unless he was referring to Nebraska, but, he said in an interview that they weren't going with the highest NIL package. There's all sorts of rumors out there. I'll tell you one thing. There's a rumor that his parents got a suite at the stadium, and that cannot be true. That's actually an NCAA violation because it would be coming from the school.
I was going to put that out there, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so you got to take everything you hear out there with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
My understanding is that we had the highest NIL package. I think the kid had a better relationship with Tennessee, and that's really the crux of the issue.
Yep.
And the uproar over Justin Fry is not about missing out on David Sanders.
It's a cumulative thing.
It's a cumulative thing, and it's more about his strategy. Like, so for instance, I mean, Andrew Stargell should be in this class already. I mean, that kid is a mauler and has all the measurables, and he would have committed to Ohio State if we let him. So it's things like that. It's like, it's okay, you missed out on Sanders, now what? And there doesn't appear to be any answers. And I got to be honest with you, man. I've heard this narrative over the last couple days or since this happened that, hey, we can just go and flip some guys in November. That is the most arrogant mindset that I have heard in a long time coming out of OSU. And let's be honest, man, we're an arrogant program.
Yeah. But
that is beyond arrogant, man. Like, just to say that these kids are just going to, I mean, we're already seeing, I mean, Preston Bowman is, for all reports indicate that kid's not going to flip from Kentucky.
Right.
So this is a new age, man. Programs have more exposure on a national level than they ever had. These kids can get in touch and talk to and visit and monitor other programs. And at the end of the day, yes, NIL is big and it definitely plays a factor in it. But at the end of the day, it's relationships, man. Yep. People do business with people that they like and trust. Okay. And right now, Justin Fry seems to me like the sales rep who has a superior product, but sucks at prospecting and is lazy at follow-up.
Yeah. People
That's the
helping
only
people.
analogy I've got, man.
Yeah. No, that's a great analogy. I saw you put that out yesterday or the day before, and that makes 100% of sense. And I'm really torn because I feel like on one hand, it was kind of a gut punch to lose David Sanders. I really thought, all along he would end up in the end. He would land here. I really did, up until about the last 48 hours, and then I started to get a little uneasy about it. However, that said, it doesn't change the fact that this is a relationship driven product program, whatever you want to call it. And one of the great things, whether you loved Urban Meyer or hated him, is that dude was a closer. Man, he could close on any recruit. He could close. And I don't feel like we have that right now, other than Brian Hartline and Tim Moulton. Now, and I'm going to throw threes in it if he gets another class like he did this year, and he can hold on to Petty John. So, but to answer the question, I don't know where we go from here. Gosh, I've seen people saying swing back on Nolan Davenport. Guy, he's a converted tight end. They told him to bulk up. There's a reason they told him to bulk up. If you take him, it's going to take 3 years.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know. I'm just telling you.
I mean, go back. How many times do we have a starting line made up of guys that aren't in their second or third or sometimes fourth year? And when you look at our national championship teams, man, you can look at the two deep. And what do they all have in common?
Third and fourth and fifth year starters?
Nope. Well, maybe. They're all from freaking Ohio.
That too.
So this, I am less concerned with a national approach and more concerned with not keeping what's in our backyard and in the region and developing them. I got one of our listeners, Sean, DMs me, and he's really taken offense to the uproar over and the complaining about Justin Fry. And I think what you need to understand and what people need to understand is, like, it's not about missing out on this prospect or that prospect. It's the strategy.
Yeah.
And it's like, what now? I mean, we've got one guy left out there right now that is not committed who has us in their top 2 or 3. And that's Javon McFadden, right?
Yep.
And we can't end up with a class of 2 or 3 offensive linemen. And I'll go back to what I said before, the arrogance that we can just go out and flip some guys. You know what? Our depth is such an issue on the O-line right now that if we're going to rely on going back and flipping guys, then we should just take those guys now.
Right.
We're going up to 105 scholarships. The offensive line needs 3 or 4 deep at every position.
Yep.
It's the strategy needs to change.
Yeah, I went and looked through the offers list of anybody that there might be available, and there just isn't much. And
no, we're gonna have to flip some people. And Berm said this morning, or maybe it was on Talking Points yesterday, he actually said that he thinks we're going to flip Micah DeBose, and that is so far out of left field. I mean, that would be beautiful. And I know a lot of people thought that he had a genuine interest in us. And yes, his family is from Cleveland, but the kid's been in Alabama since he was 10 years old, and he's committed to Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going to rely on flipping Micah DeBose from Alabama as our fallback strategy,
right?
Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking down the list, and I mean, I'm looking at these names, and there's just not, you got Malachi Goodman that's still out there uncommitted, and then you got that Michael Fasasi or whatever out of Louisville, but gosh, man, bless you. I mean, the guy that...
I thought I muted that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Bless you. You have Javon McFadden. The guy that I mean, if they were going to chase somebody, I'd rather them try to go back and circle back up on Henry Fanuku. But, because I thought he would end up here.
I called my shot on Juck's show on Saturday that I thought we were going to end up with, obviously, Lowe and Cook. I said we'd get McFadden. I said we would flip Fanuku and Stargell. I'm not confident about Stargell after what I was told.
Yeah.
But I think Fanuku's out there. I mean, his commitment was so random.
Yeah. I don't know. He's one that I think, he's one of those ones you like to call a dog. I think that he would be one that I would absolutely continue to chase. The other narrative, Dan, that I keep hearing is, well, they're just going to have to rebuild through the transfer portal. That's the way of the future. Da, 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 da. That's a risky bet to make. Like, yeah. I don't buy into that. And I'm not going to say what shows were peddling that, because I like the shows, but no,
dude, I've heard that in private chats. I've heard that on shows.
It drives me crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I mean, a couple people have covered this at this point, but if you look at the programs, know that their offensive line is going to get pillaged, so they've made it a priority to keep them.
Yeah.
And they're allocating money towards those offensive line. Like, if you look who was in the portal year over year at the offensive line, the numbers and the quality are dwindling quickly. And
yes, very much.
That's a trend. So, I heard somebody say, we're Ohio State. Just let them know we're interested. Wink, wink. And it's just like, how did that work for us this past?
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, we didn't bring in an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And everybody, Ryan more or less said they were looking at an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
In the portal, like they were looking, at that position. So the fact that we didn't means that they are not out there.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted, quite honestly, with the idea that, we'll just go into the transfer portal. Yeah, we brought in Seth McLaughlin, but it took Nick Saban retiring and a bad bowl performance for him to transfer.
Well, to be fair, he went into the portal before Saban retired. Like he was there 4 years. He wanted a change of scenery for his 5th year. I don't think that had anything to do with Saban retiring. Downs insane, absolutely. Yeah. Insane said as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seth was, and my bad, we did get Seth. So yeah. I apologize. That happened so quickly and it was so easy. So we did. We got.
But he's not a tackle. Besides, yeah. No, I'm not. Josh Simmons was somebody that I think Fry had a relationship with out on the West Coast. So that was already kind of in play too. And I'm not saying San Diego State gets a ton of run on TV, but a lot of these programs, like, look, you got Akron playing against Ohio State at 3:30. So if you're playing for Akron, so my college roommate is his cousin's John Greco, and he played for Boardman, and then went to Bowling Green and got drafted by the Browns. So, there are football players out there that, they'll get some exposure. And if you're good, the NFL is going to find you. However, I'm struggling with this idea that we should just use the transfer portal, because it's been slim pickings, man. And people and the have-nots know, who their real ones are, and they're going to try to retain them at any cost. Oh gosh, I was so mad about that. I don't know. I went to bed mad about it a couple nights ago after I heard the idea about the transfer portal. So
it's just the arrogance. And now I've said that probably 7 or 8 times at this point, but it's the arrogance that is just blowing me away right now. Like, even, Givler did a really nice job on his show the other day, but, he's the one that, like, really pushed that thing. Like, hey, we can go and flip guys in November. And I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm not sure about
that. We've beat this horse to the point that it's now glue. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the last thing I would say is I'm not afraid or opposed to the idea of that Ohio State looking at senior tape and coming back on a couple guys that maybe they were like, that camped okay, and then looking at the senior tape and saying, okay, yeah, he is a take, great, do it. Okay, please, because some kids just develop a little slower physically, and that can happen, and a lot can happen in the summer, which we've already found out from a number of players with Ohio State between spring and fall, Will Howard being one of them. So anyways,
the strategy needs to change, though. Last thing I'll say, and for those that don't think the strategy needs to change, riddle me this: why does Adam Guthrie not have an offer yet?
Yeah, I don't know. That's beyond me.
He is 6'7", 290, and he's got offers from Texas, Oregon, Tennessee, Penn State, Auburn, Florida, and he's in our backyard. Why does he not have an offer yet?
Yep. It's
I
beyond
don't
me, man.
get it. And I'm not even saying make him an offer and not committable. He should have a committable offer right now.
Yep.
To not have an offer extended to that player is what makes those of us who pay attention to recruiting worried.
Yep. 1000%, man. All right. So I'm going to stick with recruiting because I started looking up the 2026 offer list. As I told you guys, I started to kind of move on into that 2026 class. And so I'll pull it up for our viewers, Dan, here, and we can kind of, I'm going to talk, we'll start with offensive line and we'll hit a couple other categories too. However, so offensive tackles.
Some of these guys. Well, I was looking at the quarterbacks. Some of those quarterbacks are committed already.
Yeah, they are. So again, this is me like off of my Excel spreadsheet. So, yeah. I do as much as I can when I'm not working, but I'm also now coaching football on top of everything else. So, so you have, for offensive tackles, you have Jackson Cantwell out of Missouri, Sam Greer from Ohio, Tyler Merrill from PA, Jerron Parks from West Virginia. You can look at the stars, but Maxwell Riley out of Avon Lake, which we know very well, Micah Smith out of Vero Beach, Florida. He is not coming to Ohio State. Just forget it. My list may be old.
Whoa, time out. Who are you saying that's not coming to Ohio State?
Maxwell Riley.
Oh, okay. No,
unless you're hearing something I'm not.
Is that the kid that we were texting back and forth about yesterday, or is that Conroy?
Oh, I might have mixed my kids up.
You're thinking of Conroy.
I am thinking of Will Conroy. I apologize, everybody. I'll edit that maybe.
And I do think that we can still get him.
Okay.
Conroy, but it's going to be an uphill battle, man. He's barely hearing from Justin Fry. Let's talk about Will Conroy real quick.
Okay.
Justin Fry told Will Conroy that he's too small to play at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
LaCharles Bentley lost his mind and called up Ryan Day, shoot him out. Ryan extended an offer, and the kid has barely heard from Justin Fry since then. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Like, there's more than just missing on guys. Like, I mean, something's off with the strategy and the approach.
I originally wondered if it was just because it was like during the dead period, but then like we're out of the dead period now and there's still, it's weird, right? Like, it's just weird. But there's so much talent in Ohio.
Even during the dead period, you still were allowed to communicate via telephone.
Yeah, true. There's so much talent in Ohio in this 2026 class. I think I've mentioned it before. We're beyond the issue we had where some of these kids were freshmen or eighth grade and trying to develop during the COVID years, 2020, 2021, where they just didn't get the type of development that you normally do in school and then type of effort and weight room access, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're finally beyond that. And now you're seeing the impact of that. And 2026 looks like a great year. I mean, if you were going to using Ohio and winning with Ohio kids, this is the year to do it because there is a lot of talent. So, I think, I don't know, man, I'm struggling with what I'm hearing about the Conroy situation to know that, feel confident that we could bring him in. I just don't know.
And then, you've got someone like Maxwell Riley who has recently reported that he talks to Fry 3 or 4 times a week and spoke to him as recently as this Sunday.
Yeah.
I think Kurlick, it's funny. I think there's some damage control regarding Justin Fry coming out of the Woody that the beat's doing on their behalf. And that's not a knock on the beat. It's just, that's the reality of it, man. It works that way at every school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every big program's got people on the beat. It's no different than mainstream media.
Yeah.
But Bill did seem to go out of his way and talk about Justin Fry communicating aggressively with Maxwell Riley. You did leave Guthrie off of here, so we'll need to get him added.
Yeah, I noticed too that I don't know if I left for defensive ends the number one player for 2026. He may be reclassifying though. Kid out of Louisiana.
Talk about Jakeem Stewart.
Jakeem Stewart, yeah. But yeah, so I he's not on here because I think I have him on my 2025 list. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, this is where that narrative, Dan, comes from. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So add one more, 7, 8 offers out that I could find for offensive linemen for 2026. And I know it's early. I get it. But I was just using this to emphasize our point around where are the other offers.
Yeah, so. we also just got a crystal ball for the defensive end out of North Carolina. He's very highly rated 4-star.
Okay, the Aiden Harris.
Is that Aiden Harris?
Was that
okay? Yeah. You're right. We just got a crystal ball for him.
Okay,
my bad. He's on there. I thought his first name began with a Z.
Yeah. I do okay with this. Like this is early for me for 2026. I usually don't get into this until October. So, yeah, we can buzz through this though. So there's a couple players on here that one thing I was really interested in is this Jabari Brady out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Have you watched him at all?
Oh yeah.
Gosh, he's good. Man, is he good.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Like pairing him with Chris Henry, my goodness. Sorry, I got really excited. I saw him. Yeah. And then Malachi Toney, I know he's committed to Miami, but man, that kid can fly, like flat out fly.
He's an SFE kid, and he played with Ennis.
Yeah.
He actually started on the same team as Ennis as a freshman in high school.
Yeah. But as far as 2026 recruiting goes, they're getting out there. They're putting some offers out. It's starting to ramp up, but that doesn't fix 2025 for the offensive line. And then what happened last year too, because I feel like there's almost 2 years where we were really light. And that could rear its ugly head, especially with the amount of talent and senior ladenness and upperclassmen we have on this offensive line. I am concerned that things could get thin quick. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that is the concern, right? Yeah. Is like we look ahead, we look at the numbers, we look at who's in the room, and McLaughlin is gone after this year,
right?
Fryer and Simmons can both go.
Yeah.
The expectation is that they're both going to go.
Well, Donnie's a senior too, right? Don Jackson.
Yeah, Donnie's. This is his last year, so we're looking at replacing up to 4 starters on the offensive line next year.
Yeah.
And some people might argue, like, well, we've got them. We've got those starters in the room already. Okay, well, who replaces them as 2s and 3s?
Yep.
It's light. It's really, really light right now.
Yep. So I wanted to, I see that I forgot to add this in the notes, but I wanted to talk to you. So we actually took some criticism, Dan, about saying that the wide receiver room this year is light.
It is light.
Well, apparently we're wrong. And
I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong.
And I appreciate all of our comments and listeners and viewers. So I really sat back and thought about it, and my reply was basically like, yes, there is talent, but game proven talent, I don't feel like it's there yet. So you look at even let's just take Brandon Ennis, who's had a fantastic summer and fall, but I really only remember him in the Purdue game because he caught that one long touchdown pass. And I think it was from Devin Brown late in the game. And we were up big at that point. So, and then you look at Bryson Rogers, didn't play a ton. Kojo Antwi hasn't really seen the field. And you can go down the list, but, so you get beyond, and Jeremiah Smith is a true freshman. So you get beyond Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka, and then you have Jeremiah Smith, true freshman. And if I'm beating a dead horse, I'm sorry. Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, Jaden Ballard, who is a senior but hasn't done a ton on the field other than catch some punts.
When we say the receiver room is light, what we mean is based on experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to drive towards.
Yeah, I mean, Carnell had 20-some catches last year.
A couple incredible ones. Yeah.
Ennis had single digits.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, so it's a depth thing. It's an experience thing. The talent is off the charts.
Oh, yes.
And some people got upset that, the room was rated like 4th or something like that going into the season by PFF or whoever does those positional, room rankings. I had no problem with that because it was based on experience and production to date, career to date. By the end of the year, I expect that room to be at the top of that same list. So,
okay.
Yeah, we don't have experience depth in that room.
I just try, as you know, Dan, I try in our comments to at least explain where we're coming from. If somebody is offended or bothered by something, I like to make sure that, we love the Buckeyes, love them, want them to win. But we're also, we're fans, but we're also looking at it through a critical lens of hey, maybe this could be better, or maybe this looks a little thin, or maybe, whatever the case may be. So in that lore, let's call it, Dan, you sent me a text on our Pod Bros thread about what would happen if, so the truth has come out. Let's just put it this way. Devin Brown was named the starter last year ahead of Kyle McCord. Then had a couple bad practices or turnovers or something in practices, and Day changed his mind, correct? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and to clarify, he wasn't publicly named
the starter.
But he was Devin and people in close to him were told that he was going to be the starter.
Yeah, and I think Menace had that.
Corey Dennis was openly talking about it to people. Ryan himself, told a particular talking head that is very controversial, at a country concert and he's the one that used the H word, like all that stuff happened. Yeah. And then Devin crapped the bed for a couple practices, and that's where everything gets convoluted.
So I am going to flip the script then. So we have Will Howard named the starter for the first time fairly early in the process. So putting Devin at number 2. And now there's this talk about Julian Sayin and playing well. And you and I have both talked, it's really hard as a freshman to, get enough reps and be familiar enough. Now, he did come in the spring. He's very talented. We know that. He went to Alabama for a reason. We know that. So can I, and you've parroted this before, but can I just say, I need our number 2 guy to be ready now and not in 5 games. And so I'm not poo-pooing anybody. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I think Julian Sayin's a good kid, very talented. I've already told you guys that I have been told firsthand that he throws the most catchable ball of any of the quarterbacks that are there. Devin Brown has the strongest arm of any of the quarterbacks that are there. I know this, but I also know that as a true freshman, there's so much adjustment to the college game that, and Dan, you can tell me if I'm dude, you're so wrong. But I don't know. I do not feel like naming Julian the backup right now is good. It doesn't make sense to me.
Julian's not ready.
Okay.
Yeah. As uber talented as he is, he's not ready. I'll give you an example. So people just think about, all they hear about is, and they see these videos where he makes these off schedule throws and these off balance throws, and the reports out of spring was that he's got the best ball placement and accuracy, which I believe to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
But playing the quarterback position at a school like Ohio State, especially in this offense, is not just about throwing a pretty ball.
Right.
All right. So, for instance, he's really struggled recently with run reads in practice. Like, he's not ready. There's so much more that goes into him being ready to be the number 2 guy that people just don't take into consideration. They just, he's the shiny new toy and everything else like that. But, I agree with Ryan. I think the kid's going to play a lot of football at Ohio State, and I think his potential and future is off the charts. But if you're talking about a championship season loading, is he the guy to trot out there if Will goes down in the first series of the year, a la Aaron Rodgers? No, not even with the schedule that we have, because he's not ready.
Okay. So where I was leading with this is, what does that say to you? One, about the Missouri game and when Dev went down and Lincoln came in, and what Lincoln's performance was, and where perhaps the quarterback room is next year. So all 5 stay. All reports are Aaron Nolan's really put in some work this summer. Sayan is in the midst for 2 and 3, the quarterback position. So last time we won a natty, needed all 3 quarterbacks. So where is that in your mind? Like, it kind of bothers me a little bit. I'm not going to lie that we threw Lincoln out there.
I'm really concerned with the depth in that quarterback room next year, not from a talent perspective. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the receiver room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's all sorts of talent.
Yes.
And potential in that room. But, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that the room will consist of Julian, Air, and St. Clair going into next year. And if if anybody feels good about that, then they're not serious students of the game. I mean, that is a light room. Okay, Will's gone.
Yeah. Well, he has to be gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I would be shocked at this point if Devin sticks around to compete with Julian.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot there that we don't talk about on the show that I just don't think that would be.
That would be proved on his part at this point. Like, you've lost the job twice.
No. He's got he'll have 2 years left after this season. That's plenty of time to go somewhere and make his mark and have a nice finish to his career. And
he'll go to Notre Dame and throw for 75,000 yards and
but I mean, the wild card there is Lincoln. Can I see them throwing some money at Lincoln to keep him around just for depth? Well, yeah, I mean, they did this year.
So that was what I was going to ask you. Will they? Are they going to redshirt Lincoln Keenholz this year? Would you redshirt?
He redshirted last year. He already redshirted.
Okay, that did not come up in my Google search.
I mean, I don't think he got into 4 games last year.
All right, let me.
And the bowl game doesn't count as one of the 4. Okay. I don't think he got into 4 regular season games last year. I'd be shocked if he did. That would be negligent on Ryan's part. I mean, I can maybe see Lincoln sticking around and competing with Julian, and Air. People that think Tavian's going to come, I think we just have to wait and see. There's still the level of competition issue with Tavian.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that kid, physically, let's put it this way. We would be talking differently about Julian right now if he had the physical traits of St. Clair right now. Like, a lot of the narrative would be different. He still wouldn't be ready. And that's my point about Tavian. Like, Tavian's not going to be ready next year either. The reports that he's really in our playbook, I think, are true.
You're right. He did redshirt.
But he, yeah. So, I mean, going back to Lincoln, he's got 4 years left, including this year. So,
correct.
Can I see him sticking around? Can I see them convincing him to stick around as a depth piece with the notion that he's going to, you know, truly compete with Julian, which I don't buy.
And he can model for Express, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the quarterback room next year is going to be light.
Yeah. Okay. I just was curious. It was on my mind. It was on my mind, you know, to ask about it, because I when like it's kind of public knowledge now about what happened last year, and then so you start dialing down the list of the quarterbacks that are there, and then the age of the quarterbacks, and then the competition with Sayin and Devin, and like you start looking at it, and no one is talking about Keenholz, you know, and then you hear little whispers. You know, we've heard whispers about Air Noland, and between January and August, the difference, and you know, that's a benefit of him being in the spring. Same with Julian. Like, those guys that come in the spring, it makes a difference. Just ask Aaron Scott and Bryce West. Or last year, it was Jermaine Matthews came in the spring, and Calvin Simpson Hunt came in the summer. You know, so
yeah,
there's a difference.
I mean, people need to understand how the quarterback room is managed once the season starts, and it's already started. I'll give you an example. They had a relatively short practice yesterday, and Brown and Howard are the only two that got reps.
Correct.
The other three had to stay behind to get in some extra work.
Yeah.
Once the season starts, like, you got QB1 and you got QB2 splitting the reps with the ones.
Yep. And it's not even it's like 70-30 too. It's not.
Yeah, and then you got QB3 running the scout team, or somebody running the scout team off of play cards.
Yep.
And the other two aren't getting reps at all.
Yep.
Like, any meaningful reps. And you saw that with Lincoln last year. Lincoln got no meaningful reps during the course of the season,
or at bowl practice,
because they were trying to get Devin ready. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Devin got like almost 100% of the reps.
I think we were told he got like 10% at most. Lincoln got 10% at most of the reps for bowl practice.
So, and look what happened, and it's no fault of his own.
No.
But, you know, I mean,
he's running for his life too.
Running for his life, even on drop back passes, he's running backwards. You know, falling backwards. I mean, people just need to understand how a quarterback room is managed once the season starts, and like it. And we're talking about this to talk about the experience that will be coming back next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, there was somebody, I was listening to one the other day that somebody was all hot and bothered about, like, you know, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleek, and some of those guys only, like, they're not doing a ton of tackling right now because they just don't need to. And I was like, okay, I get it, but do you want? I don't know, man. There's such a fine line, and Ryan Day being in the NFL, I feel like he's brought that NFL mentality a little bit to the, you know, almost like the preseason. You know, like, we're gonna let our guys get in there for, you know, 5 minutes, and then we're pulling them out, and there better nobody better get their foot stepped on, because, you know,
you're talking about in these early games.
Yeah, just in general for fall practice. Even they were saying that you know, Jack and some of those guys aren't really tackling. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're treating it like an NFL camp. I do think they'll play meaningful reps these first few weeks. They're gonna need to, because they need to. You know, they can't just. I mean, you know, you look at the NFL, and those games at the beginning of the year are sloppy.
Yeah, they are,
because the guys aren't, you know, especially with quarterbacks and receivers, because guys aren't playing together very often. In, you know, any meaningful preseason stuff, but yeah, no, man, I'm you know, having said all that, I'm super excited for this season, man. I
am too. So I got a thing from Ohio State the other day about the home games, and I thought I would just share it. It's not in my notes, Dan. It's actually just the stuff that they're doing for the home games. So
cool.
The home game themes. So I thought if you guys are watching us and you're still watching us, I would just share it. I'm actually going to put it up on Twitter for everybody on our page too. But all the home games, so you can see Archie Griffin, 50th anniversary of the Heisman.
He's got a statue.
Yep. He's got a statue.
It's awesome. Can't believe it took this long. The only, who was it that was talking about it? I think it was Eric on the OHIO podcast. Like
probably
he's the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winning player in the, like, he is one of one. I loved when Eric said that. He goes, he's one of one in the world, in the universe. And they're just now getting around to honoring him and having a statue. And he's been such an amazing ambassador to the school as well.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not like he's been off in the dwellings of some dark cave and nobody's seen him. Like he's the face of Ohio State football. Yeah,
there was only one other guy I thought maybe at some time might do that, and it was Tim Tebow. I thought he might get 2 of them, but great college player.
He was the first sophomore to win it.
Yep. Alumni Band Day is kind of fun. So we have a friend of the show that her daughter's in the band, and so the other bands, like the other graduates, come back, and I've been there to that one. Gosh, I feel like I've been to Alumni Band Day like 30 times in my life. So Scarlet and Gray game against Marshall, Hall of Fame game for against Iowa. Homecoming, if you're coming to homecoming, just be ready. If you've ever been to a homecoming game, it's a little. Now it is Nebraska. I expect Nebraska to be better, but a lot of the other homecomings, it's usually over by halftime, and the college crowd leaves and heads to the parties. But military appreciation, first responders, and then senior day against that team up north on November 30th. So there's your home game themes. I hope you guys get to see some, get to some. And get to enjoy some games at the Horseshoe before it's remodeled.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, guys. Dan, any last thoughts, man? Anything on your mind?
No, I think we get we're going to get to see some interviews with the final position groups and coaches between now and Friday.
I think it's Thursday, right? Or Wednesday, Thursday. I don't remember.
I got to go back and listen to the daily podcast. Austin Ward went over the schedule, and I got the impression that it was going to be a different group like every day the rest of this week. But maybe not. And practices aren't open to them.
Yeah.
But they come and hang around for interviews afterwards. I don't know if it's all one day or if it's spread out, but I'll be paying attention.
Yeah, same here. I don't have too awful much on my mind other than just a reminder we'll be on with Ron and Q in the morning. You guys make sure you get a coffee and join us, ask us some questions. I'm excited to spend some time as part of the Best Damn Media because we're the Best Damn Podcast. So we kind of meshes together a little bit, I guess. All right. Other than that, I guess we can call it a day, man.
Yeah, no, one last thing. Linebackers, keep your eyes open. James Laurinaitis was, when he was interviewed in the spring, he talked about, he's like, listen, the ones could change from day to day depending on who's performing. And that's the type of culture I want in this room. And, it seems like Arvell Reese has been getting some run with the ones recently. So
shocking.
He was silver bullet of the day. He was called out specifically by Knowles as somebody who, is really performing and flashing. So, he's getting some run with the ones, and I love that, man.
Yeah.
I love that Laurinaitis is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that linebacker room, we worried about it, but man, there's a lot of talent in that room. So, and then as we talked about with the wide receivers, there's talent. Just are they game ready? Sonny, I think Sonny Styles playing safety last year was probably one of the smartest things ever because now he's got a full year of starting under his belt, even though it was a different position. And then you bring in a veteran like Cody Simon, who's freakishly athletic, by the way. Huge help. So I love it. I love the way Threes is coaching. It's perfect. I'm excited for the season. It's going to be fun.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely. Super excited. It's not, I don't know I think the Michigan State game will feel like the start of the season for me, just because it's a Big Ten team.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's these first 3 games are going to be kind of anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect to see what we saw last year. I mean, I looked at the scores from last year. Dude, we beat Youngstown State 35-7.
Yeah. Well, the first half it was closer. It was closer than I thought it would be.
Last year was just so
goofy,
disappointing offensively. Yeah.
It was just goofy. It was, yeah. And I'm still planning to go to the Akron game as of right now. So we'll see if anything changes, because I wasn't 100% planning to be the coach for my son's football team. So things have shifted a little bit in our home. So anyways, you guys have a good week. Stay safe out there. Catch us tomorrow morning, with Best Damn Media, Ron and Q. Again, thank you. Appreciate you guys. And as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.